This is Igor Skardov with the Martinez Historical Society Oral History Project. And today, October 23rd, 2019, we're in the home of Dr. Kent Hobert and Nancy Hobert. Thank you for doing this. Looking forward to having a really interesting conversation. So why don't we start with maybe a little bit of background on your family histories. So I'd like to maybe have one of you trace your family history roughly from however far you want to go back to when you two get together, and then the other one do the other branch, and then from then on we'll just kind of free for all. How's that sound? Yeah.
All right. I was born in New Hampton, Iowa, and I have one sister. My dad did a variety of things. He built air base in Banff, Canada, when the Second World War was going on. He sold insurance, sold tractors. My mom was a homebody, smart as a whip. My mom was super smart. And we grew up in New Hampton, moved to Charles City when I was in first grade. Went to Charles City High School, and that's when I met him.
Well, maybe if we go back a little bit, your family has been in this country for
a few years,
really
yes.
long time.
I'm a member of the Mayflower Society.
Is that right?
I have two ancestors that I know of that came on the Mayflower, two different tree lines. And I used to do a lot of genealogy when we didn't have a second car in Florida, and I was kind of stuck at home, so I did a lot of genealogy. But now I'm anxious to get back to it. Of course, it's all computerized, so it should be a lot more interesting, I think. So.
Have any connections that you identified between the Mayflower and your present time?
Oh yeah, you have to do the whole line down to be accepted. And my mom did it, and of course then I could go in on her membership. But last year I took my youngest grandson to Boston, and we went out to the village where the Mayflower passengers first lived. And there were over 100 of them, but only half of them lived through the first year. So they had quite a level of death that first year from disease, and there weren't a lot of women. So it's amazing anybody survived to be descendants, I guess.
And
now there
you
are
are,
thousands of them, thousands of them,
Okay.
And then I went to Grinnell College in Iowa, majoring in education, and loved college. They had women's sports, and I was always very athletic.
Yeah, what did you play?
Yeah, bicycled through Europe when I was in college with a friend. And anyway.
All right.
Then we got married.
Yeah.
Now he can tell his half.
Okay, now you bring us up to that point.
I was born in Charles City, Iowa, on a farm, and Charles City is a small town of 10,000, and I started in a one-room country school. The one teacher in the room with primary through 8th grade, so there were like a dozen of us, all in the same class, and that was the last year of the one-room country school. It was 1944, and then they consolidated and bused the farm students into the public high school.
Well, tell more about the one room, Okay.
I was there in 44, and in the fall of the year, we got out of class with our gunny sacks, and we went along the railroad tracks and picked all of the milkweed pods. Milkweed pods are enormous. It's like a dandelion pod, but much bigger. And we were using those for lining the flight jackets because we didn't have any of the synthetic stuff that you guys produced. And like I say, that was the last year. Then I went to town, went through public school, and went through school with her, and we never dated. We were friends. We were competitors.
What did you compete on?
Class
We tied
officers.
for freshman class president.
Is that right?
And I beat her. And then
Yes, they had a runoff, and my friend said, "Don't worry, he's just a kid from the country. He'll never beat you." And he beat me. So he says, "I've taken all these years to pay him back."
Then I was the senior class president. Our class was what, 110?
120.
120. And when I graduated from high school, I went to Iowa State College at that time, which was a land grant school. And it was a quarter system. tuition was $49 a quarter. Going to a land grant school, every male had to serve in ROTC. It was a requirement of the land grant schools. And I didn't graduate from there because I started there in vet school.
Wait 1 second. Tell about when you went to school, or you tell the grandkids. You left for school. All his belongings were in one Samsonite suitcase,
There was
and he hitchhiked.
no electronics and stuff. Yeah. Samsonite suitcase, and one of the other guys going down to the college, gave me a ride. That's where I started, and that's where I finished. Then I went to the University of Iowa. I started in vet school because that's what I wanted to do, being born and raised on a farm. But some way along the line, my thinking changed, and I wanted to go to the medical school. So I went to the University of Iowa, and then through medical school. And when I graduated from medical school in 1964, came to Stockton, California for a internship. Practically half of our class from Iowa would come to the California County Hospital system because it was so busy and so diverse. At the University of Iowa, we didn't see any acute heart attack or any alcoholic or any because they were all taken care of in their own hometown. So only thing we got was all the referrals all day long of all the exotic and unusual and rare that couldn't be treated or diagnosed in their hometown. So we had a very limited education. So that's the reason I came to Stockton. Did an internship there, and that's when, at that time, because of the war, I'd been 4F before because of my
Vietnam War
visit.
at that time.
Yeah, the Vietnam War. Every doc that was capable of practicing had to serve 2 years in the military. So I thought, we talked it over and we thought, wow, rather than waiting to be drafted, let's just sign up and get it over. And we thought, well, Spain sounds like it. Let's go to the Air Force in Spain. But, so I signed up, pressed hard,
And
3
what?
copies.
You went up there, what month was that?
It was in the fall of the year.
Yeah,
So
63.
went up there and signed up and really excited about going to Spain. A few weeks later, the first bombers went over Vietnam. And all I wanted to do at that time was, hey, maybe stay in the United States. And then I got assigned in the Air Force, 2 years in Miami, in the Air Force Base. And when I finished my 2 years of training or serving in the Air Force, I wanted to get further primary care education. So I had heard about Martinez, California, where they had this great residency program at Contra Costa Medical. So we signed up, put the kids in the car, and headed to Martinez.
And we had not left Miami. And my son said, are we almost there? He was 3, 4, and it was a long trip to California.
From Miami?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you to back up just a little bit. Now, somewhere along the way, your histories merged.
Combined, yes.
And we want to hear about that.
We were married the year after I graduated from college.
We
And
never dated
dated till after
in high school, but we were both in the same small town. And that summer, we got together and
The same doctor delivered us many years ago.
Oh.
And one thing he didn't tell you about the country school was it didn't have any electricity or running water. So every day a student got picked to go across the road to get wood for the fire, or water, I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, that was really the old
It
days.
was, I just had the last year of that whole,
Old country
before
school.
the whole thing changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
buses
so I-
came in.
I just
Like you
saw-
said about your high school, buses come in and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the
I
whole
just
school changes.
had a tremendous opportunity to,
Well, We heard a little bit about Nancy's ancestors coming over on the Mayflower and stuff. Do you have a comparable
I
kind of
don't,
thing? in
other
there?
than my grandmother couldn't speak a word of English.
Yeah.
German. All my background is German, and I
Any
don't
sense
know.
when your family came over from Germany?
You have English ones who came a long time
Oh,
ago.
sure, yeah,
But the
English.
Germans, probably the 1800s, I'm sure it
Yes,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
1880s, 90s.
Ended up in Iowa at some one.
On the farm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So this brings you all to Martinez.
Well,
Yes.
then in Iowa City, I taught school, third
Yeah.
grade in Iowa City, while he was in medical school, and we had our son there. We had our daughter Beth in Miami and at the Air Force Hospital, and Kemp came to pick us up, and they had to pay for my food in the hospital because he'd already gotten an allowance. So they charged him $5 to get us out of the hospital, and he didn't have it. So my dad paid. And he always said Beth was his granddaughter after that because he paid to bring her home. So, yeah.
Well, cool. So that brings you
To Martinez,
Martinez,
right
yeah.
next to Mary and Pete Amato
Yeah.
up on Willow
You
Street.
know
Yeah.
Mary, Pete, the Amad?
You knew Amatos.
Sure.
Yeah.
I lived there for a couple of years. It's taken further training, and we were flying back all over the United States
Yeah.
trying to figure out where to go into practice. And Mary Amado, time and again, would say, "Doctor, doctor, open your eyes, look at Martinez. Martinez needs a doctor." And that's kind of what tipped me into staying in Martinez.
But then how many doctors were here then?
Well, when I started, there were 13 doctors in Martinez.
And now he's the only one,
Hmm.
private doctor in Martinez.
Yeah.
Rampoldi and,
All kinds of them.
yeah, lots of them. Fitzpatrick.
So you got engaged in private practice first when you first came?
I stayed at the county hospital.
Yeah.
I stayed at the county hospital, and I had a real interest in obstetrics and gynecology. And everybody at the county hospital, and the county hospital was big and active and delivering 30, 40 babies a month. And there were no OBGYN specialists in the hospital whatsoever. A visiting OBGYN from Walnut Creek or Concord would come out for a half a day, supervise the residents, help in the training of the residents, and I paired up with them a half a day, 2 times a day, 5 days a week, and over the years, and not that many years, 3, 4 years, whatever, I was doing it without them because they had taught me how to do it. And I always had them as a backup if I needed to call in as a specialist. And as a result of all that, I ended up being head of the OBGYN department for 25 years, where I practiced until 2000. 2000, I retired from the county hospital, but kept this small practice that I started, because I always thought the county hospital is never going to exist. Everybody said it's going to fold, it's going to be taken over by Brookside and Pittsburgh and all these hospitals that don't exist anymore. And so I liked Martinez, and I wanted something on the side that I could slide into rather than have to pack up and move some other place.
So how old were your kids when you guys came to Martinez?
Beth was a little baby. Our son was like 4 and 1, I guess.
So they basically grew up here.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then
Yes.
our third one, I had her at Mount Diablo. She grew up from the beginning here. So.
Yeah. So you had your daughter in Mount Diablo Hospital?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And that is?
Amy. Yeah.
And I delivered a lot of babies at Mount Diablo Hospital,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
county and Mount Diablo.
And then once we decided to stay, Ken had been going out through Alhambra Valley every noon, looking around, drooling over the locations and all. We tried to buy the house we were in, and he wouldn't sell it to us, Stan McNamara. And so we started looking for property, and we built our first house down the road. Kent's father came. He was a master carpenter. He came and lived with us for a year and built that house.
And where was that?
Just down the road, a half a mile,
Yeah.
right in front of Mary Waltz. Do you know where she lives? The front part of that property.
Okay.
5250, was that her address? Something like that.
5258.
Yeah. It's redwood with a bridge over to it. When you go back, it's on the left.
Well, look for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your dad built that house?
Yes.
Yeah. You were busy
In
delivering babies?
subcontract.
Yeah, he was busy delivering
Yeah,
babies.
in
Yeah.
subcontract, obviously,
Yeah,
especially. But he was the general, and in the mean.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, you were raising the kids.
I
and
was raising the
getting
kids,
involved with
and
the
I did
community?
not go
Yeah.
back to a full-time job, but there was a vacancy on the school board in 1977, I believe, and Norm MacDonald asked me to apply for it, and I did, and was given the appointment, but then Nadine Verrilli, I can't think of his first name, Verrilli, Nadine Verrilli's husband, filed a protest that it hadn't been fair because people wanted to elect their representatives. So it threw it into election, which I did win, and then I served on it 17 years. Maury Huguet said if I did it one more year, he was going to commit me. But we went through a recall. Jackie probably told you about that, Ulrich.
Well, tell us about that.
Well,
Yeah.
we had a choice.
Busing.
The population was shrinking. So we had a choice of either breaking up the junior high and putting 7th graders back on the elementary sites and the 8th graders at the high school and not having a middle school, or closing one elementary school. And that's what we did, because we didn't want 8th graders at the high school and we didn't want 7th graders at the elementary. So we closed John Muir, and the parents went ballistic. And we went through a very ugly recall. My kids got very emotionally involved in it. But they had to run one person against one. Ted Price ran against me. And I got 82% of the vote. So we skunked them. We
Yeah.
skunked them, yes.
So you kept.
We kept it with the junior high being open, yes. And then when we had to renovate schools, ours was the first district after the law passed that you had to have 2/3 approval for a bond issue. And ours was the first school district, and I don't remember what we passed, but Mark Ross did the precinct work, and I helped him. And we did a lot of door-to-door walking and committee voting, so we committed votes by families. And then they checked back in election day, make sure all their family voted and all. And the first bond was to build, the elementary was, let me think, I guess the high school, redo the high school and the elementary schools. And then the second bond was to do the junior high. So then by that time they were all completed, and they're all really beautiful schools. This year they're doing John Muir from scratch, starting a brand new school at John Muir,
Was that right?
which was the oldest one.
Yeah. So that was the one that. Let's see. I get it straight. Originally, you were going to shut down.
We were going to shut the junior high.
Oh,
We had a choice of shutting the junior high or John Muir, and we shut John Muir.
I see.
So
But it's back up now.
yes, because the population grew a lot.
I see.
Yeah,
So was it kind of fallow for a while and then
it was just closed.
closed
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now you've got Morello Park as well.
Yes, and that's a beautiful little school.
Yeah.
So the years on the school board were great, and then I did a lot of other volunteering. I had a campfire group with my older daughter, Beth. 8 of her friends for 8 years. Each mother helped 1 month, and then I did it all year round, and that was very rewarding. Then I do a lot of cards and bunco and mahjong and bridge and 3 book groups and on and on.
Okay. And in the meantime, your kids were growing up
Yes.
and your practice was, you
Yeah.
were actually being established as the OBGYN guy. Yeah. So tell us some more. Where did the thing go from there?
Where we go from where?
Well,
I guess when you were paralyzed was a
Oh,
huge big thing.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was,
In 83,
1983, I was
we were in our 40s, we were young.
down with our family down in Monterey, played golf all day, went to bed, woke up paralyzed. No medical problems, no pills, no nothing. Anyway, I ended up at the university, and they could never come up with a diagnosis. It was just a spontaneous, no injury, no illness, spontaneous onset of paralysis. And what was a surprise.
It was a shock.
But
Well, yeah.
I did physical
You
therapy.
went to Ralph Davies.
Yeah, I went to Ralph K. Davies
For a month.
in San Francisco for a month. And anyway, I got discharged. I in a wheelchair. I had upper body strength, but T7 paralyzed. I went back to work.
They taught him to drive.
Oh, they taught me how to drive. Yeah.
On the day he left for work, I said, what if you get there and you can't get out of your car? He said, well, I guess I'll come back home.
So
He
I,
didn't show up till dinner time.
It's only like 6 weeks after I was paralyzed. I was back working full time,
Wow.
Yeah.
only doing from a chair, and then I went on and developed into a stand-up wheelchair and with some training, and ended up doing a lot of surgery from a stand-up wheelchair at both the county hospital and Mount Diablo Hospital, and I did that. I did that from '83 when I was paralyzed
Until
until
2000.
I retired in 2000.
Now, the other thing you did too was several doctors who became paralyzed
Yeah.
and a medical student or somebody who wanted to go to medical school contacted you. You talked to a lot of people about situations they were in.
Yeah, well, like an ophthalmologist. Yeah, very simple. As long as he's standing, there's no reason he can't do surgery just because he's
In a chair.
In a chair.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you became sort of a mentor for some of these folks? Yeah.
Well, not. I mean, very minimal contact, but talk with them, just let them know what's available out there.
Yeah, yeah. So let them know that there's
Yeah.
life
And-
after that.
And in
Yes.
the hospital, we would end up with the young guys, motor, diving, whatever, in the hospital, paralyzed. I'd always make a point to try and talk with them and let them know, actually
Yeah.
what they could do.
Well, you were doing surgery while you were paralyzed from the waist down
Right,
on a
Upper
stand-up.
higher.
on a stand-up wheelchair.
Can you help us understand how that works?
Well, the feet are fixed. The chair isn't much bigger than this, and it's got air piston sleeves.
Triggers, like triggers.
So I could push the triggers, and
Wait, you're hooked up to a wire.
I don't think I'm sure of that.
I know, but
It's okay, the microphone will be all right. Yeah. Go ahead.
his
So
butt
anyway.
cushion fell on top.
My shoulders bother me so much today I can't stand up, but I would stand up and put just a wide bolster across the knee. So the feet are fixed this way, the knees are fixed this way. The only thing that's not fixed is the chest. And I had a wide, loose bolster to keep me from falling clear forward. So I had the whole upper body range of motion standing in the chair
And you'd perform surgery in that situation?
for years.
What kind of surgeries did you do?
OB/GYN, C-sections, hysterectomies, GYN.
Probably cancer? I don't know.
No, back
No.
at the, no,
Okay.
no, those. we should-
Happy things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. How many babies did you deliver that way, do you think?
I don't know, but lots.
Yeah.
Thousands, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Wow.
lots. I don't know why I can't stand up. It's because of my damn shoulder.
Well, that
gonna-
wire's
We're
behind
gonna edit
you.
some of this, maybe.
Yeah. Now tell about when the supervisors are voting whether to keep the hospital and your involvement in building the new one.
I just got politically very involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that was another kind of frontier to cross, huh?
Yeah.
I don't remember what year that
How did you get
was.
engaged in that? Yeah, kind of
it's
tell us
just-
how that happened.
And this had to be close to 2000 that we were replacing. They were voting. The district hospitals won. The county hospital closed. The district hospital, it was Brookside, it was Pittsburgh, it was Concord. I forgot what was in Pinole doctors. They wanted the patients. They didn't need the county hospital. It was redundant. So there was a big division and political fight in terms of close it or replace it. And I worked with a lot of the supervisors and different people in terms of replacing the county hospital.
Yeah.
And since then, Brookside is closed,
Yeah.
Pinole is closed,
Doctors.
Doctors Hospital is closed, and County Hospital, you got to stand in line today to get in. It's so active.
Yeah. And so when was that rebuilt?
I don't remember, but I don't think
Close
it
to
was.
2000.
Oh, I think it
Yeah.
was in the 1990s.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, somewhere in there, yeah.
but
Yeah.
But
was
how
co-
did that work out? I mean, you had an existing functioning hospital.
it was
and you-
so it was a third world hospital.
Yeah.
It really was. We
But
would
you, but
take
you
a-
had to keep that one running while you built the new one, right?
we built a new one in a new spot.
Ah,
We had 13 acres there, and the old one was a one-story.
They had to take you down outside corridors to go to surgery.
Yeah.
And the wards, if you were a patient, they were all 6-bed wards. You didn't have private rooms at all.
It was really
It was really old.
and so
Yeah.
it continued to function
while the other one
while you
was
built the new
It
hospital.
must have been in front of the old one and the new one. Was it kind of in front of it now?
when you go down. No, the hospital was way at the back,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
the old was in the front.
Oh, sure, because I know where the cafeteria still is.
And
Uh-huh.
so, but that was an ugly fight, and I lost good friends because diametrically opposed in terms of.
Jeff Smith was on the supervisors then, and he had been, he was a physician at the hospital
Yeah,
at that time. And Mark DeSaulnier was on, and Tom Powers. And Mark DeSaulnier was a Republican when he went on, and he was the critical vote in it, and he voted to build a new hospital.
And what's his name? Good grief!
Schroeder?
Yeah,
Yeah, Bob,
Rob
Schroeder.
was
Rob
really
Schroeder's
worked with
dad.
Yeah,
Schroeder.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he really leaned. And then DeSaulnier,
And Sonny McPeak.
who was a registered Republican, switched and cast the
Parties.
deciding vote to
For the
replace
hospital. They had a fundraiser. They had a huge fundraiser down at the John Muir House, remember?
Oh, yeah.
He got merchants on Main Street to donate and blah, blah, blah. Were you in a chair when you did all
Oh,
that?
sure.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
I was thinking it was maybe earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So what were the kind of the issues that helped decide this?
Well, all we needed, there were 5 supervisors, all we needed were three votes.
Yeah.
And it was working on the supervisors in pointing out and letting them really see what the function of the county hospital was. George Dignan, who was my very good friend, he was the head, and he was a very, very powerful Democrat. And he absolutely did not want the hospital. He said, Hobert, don't be so lazy. Why do you have to make that lady come all the way from Pittsburgh to Martinez to deliver her baby? Deliver her at her own regional hospital. And he was just adamant along that line that they wanted everybody taken care of in their own community. And our point was that the private doctors were not taking care of the people
They wouldn't
off the
take
street.
Medi-Cal.
They weren't taking Medi-Cal. They weren't taking people off the street. They weren't taking care of them to start with, or they wouldn't be coming to the old hospital at the current time, which was at capacity. They came there because they didn't have any other.
And the other big thing
Didn't
was,
have any other. Didn't have any other choice.
the other big thing was the training hospital. You have how many positions each year, and you have hundreds of people apply for medical schools all over.
Yeah, we still have the resident. We have one of the best family practice residency programs in the country. We take
3-year program.
We take, and it's UC Davis affiliated, whatever, and we take 10 residents a year, and we probably get 200 applications. It's listed in the top 10 family practice residency pro. And most people in Martinez, they don't even know the program is there.
Well, for those of us who aren't real familiar with how the medical establishment works, can you tell us what this residency program means, basically? Or
Well, now it's training family practice residents in terms of from pediatric to, daily, sore throats, coughs, broken bones, delivering a baby, birth
I think
control.
you have psych rotation. They
Just-
rotate through each different.
so doctors come from other practices?
After they finish their training.
Okay, help me with that then.
Yeah, you graduate from medical school, 4 years undergraduate, 4 years medical school, a year's internship, and then 3 years further training so that you could qualify as a certified family practice physician.
So that's kind of the route that people have to take, and you
Right.
provided that
Or
service.
else
Yeah.
you go through internship, and then you go to anesthesia, or you go to surgery, or you go to
Some specialty.
some specialty.
Yeah.
And if you see, the paper off and on, that to this day, and it'll come up in the paper every 6 months, the number one need of physicians in the United States, as of today, and has been, primary care physicians. Yeah.
And in the middle of the country.
Mm.
Oh, the middle of the
Some
country.
areas just aren't served very well.
Yeah, the middle of the country is really.
Hurting.
So your practice here of, I guess, incubating and mentoring doctors into that, so helps to provide the supply of doctors
Yes.
to do that.
And a lot of doctors in this county, they've done head counts before. How many physicians currently practicing here are graduates of that program? Often they stay in the area.
Yeah.
True.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you must be real proud of having
Yeah.
part of that. Yeah.
Have you ever been in that hospital?
I have, but not as a patient or in medical reasons. We bring magazines for the,
Oh, yes.
and
Patients.
from time to time. And, is there still a farmer's market there in the parking lot?
I
Yeah, they
think
still
on
do.
one day a week,
One
yeah.
half day a week.
It was pretty
They
cool.
use the parking lot for
Yeah,
farmers market.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they built the whole clinic building next to it, rather than intensive care beds. I don't know how many intensive care beds there are. I knew at one time. I don't know.
Yeah, I used to teach a class on chemistry of fire, which involved sort of a little set of demonstrations, and I did one of those in the parking lot by those trees, that little grove of trees you have there.
Yes.
A bunch of people came.
Redwood trees?
We set off explosions and fires and talked about chemistry of fire there. It's very fun.
Yeah.
Were you engaged with the hospital at the time when the fire came over the hill from Highway 4?
Yes.
That was a kind of a near
It
thing,
came
wasn't
close.
it? Yeah.
Came close.
So that.
And then he's done a lot of like woodworking. That's one of his chests he built right there.
Yeah.
That's his big hobby.
You've
He
got
used
quite
to
a
be a
facility
gardener,
out
but
here.
he kind of
yeah.
pooped out and left
I've
it
got
to me.
all the tools.
Yeah.
I do small boxes, small chest.
And who do you find to gift with these kind of things?
All the different charity, the library, the school, the
Yeah.
where they-
Auctions,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Doc's boxes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
donating
I
the-
think Janet Kennedy has 4 of them. She loves them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I worked on your site years ago when we had a polling place here.
Yes.
Yes.
And I remember being impressed with the gardening setup you have there,
Yes.
so you could get around, and it was about this high,
Raised boxes.
raised beds, so you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
do your gardening from your chair.
Well, we've
It's
both
a
been,
mess now because of what's happened in the last 6 months, but in the past,
Yeah.
big garden.
well, it's still a big garden. 45 tomato plants is a big garden.
Yeah,
It's a lot of tomatoes.
lot of tomatoes.
So what happened in the last 6 months?
Well, he's been,
I'm sorry?
well, he said what's been happening in the last 6 months. He hasn't been gardening, let's put it like that.
Well, I developed a pressure ulcer on my backside, and it's gotten infected a couple times. I had to go into the hospital. So basically, the wound care doc says, off it, totally. So that's where I am as of today.
So
Wow.
I've turned into the gardener, but I'm a pretty pathetic gardener.
Are you?
Yeah.
You'd rather manage books, I guess.
Yes,
huh?
I would rather do
Yeah.
that. I would
Seems like
rather
the
read
library is
books.
kind of near and dear to your
Yes.
heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing gardening is a little like housekeeping. You just have to keep redoing it all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
So, and we've both been very political over the years. We've had a lot of political events here,
A lot of fundraisers here.
a lot of fundraisers. Just had one for Marcus Saulnier a month or so ago.
Yeah.
So you've also been on the school board, have
17 years.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. That's not supposed to be political, however. That's supposed to be
well, community based.
Community,
Yeah.
community minded.
Yeah.
Right. And I enjoyed it very much. It was very interesting.
So were you engaged with the school when the new Alhambra High School was?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was on the board then when it was
Yeah.
rebuilt.
How did that come about to make that happen?
Well, all the schools were in terrible shape.
Yeah.
Terrible. And you had to decide which ones you were going to do first. We left the junior high till last, But I had a junior high teacher tell me once that's because we all hate junior high age kids, which wasn't true. But you know, the high school, it was so long ago now that it was built that they're having to rebuild parts. You think something you build is going to be there forever, and that isn't always what happens.
Well, there's been some expansions there with the performing arts.
Oh,
facilities.
yes.
Yes, and that got finished. Yeah, it's a beautiful school. It really is.
We've been covering a lot of activities that you were engaged in when you were in Martinez, heavily involved in the hospital and the schools and all these public and community assets that you've helped to develop and to establish in our town. And one of the things that we'd like to do is go back in time a little bit to your times in Iowa on what kinds of things that you want to tell us about
Remember?
from back then. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to name my parents. My mother was Geraldine Phillips, and my father, Clyde King, and they were married many years. They eloped when she was in college, and they had a long, happy marriage, and we had a wonderful family. My sister and I have talked, we had a family like kids do now. You know, we went to camp, we had horses, we were just, and my parents weren't wealthy. They were middle class. My dad sold insurance. But we had things that kids do now, and so it took family vacations and things, which was really nice. So, and I'd like us to talk about our children for a second.
Have at it.
Our oldest is Tim. He lives in Stockton. He teaches English at Modesto Junior College and has for many years. He's a marathon runner. He runs the Boston Marathon. He's run it 6 years in a row now. He has a son, Timothy. He has a partner, Don, now, and his son, Timothy, who's 30, who just got engaged. He lives in Houston. And they're going to be married next spring, he and Dana, so we're looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun. They're super neat kids. They're both engineers. He's a mechanical engineer, and she's biomedical. Then our daughter, Amy, who lives in town, has 3 children. The oldest is Ryan Joseph Beatty. He's in his first year of college. I'll let Kent tell about his college scholarship. Last year at Alhambra.
He is a great fisherman. He loves fishing. Anyway, make a long story short, he worked with some of the teachers and sports people at Alhambra and started a bass fishing club.
Last year.
And as a result, they ended up with 12, 14 kids, and they were fishing in different tournaments up the lakes up north. And they entered in the state fishing tournament, and they came in
6th.
Yes, came in 6th in the state. So that qualified him to go back east to Louisiana.
Florence, Alabama, the home of Helen Keller.
In the national bass fishing tournament. And in it, there were 380 some participants, and they came in like 38th out of 300 and some. Make a long story short.
But they came in first for California.
They came in first for California, correct.
Students.
And 38th throughout the country. Anyway, he got a $60,000 scholarship
To college.
to college.
Bass fishing your way to
Bass
college.
fishing.
Huh?
And I didn't realize it. Fishing is enormous.
High school sport.
Well,
Or
professional.
sport, period.
When you look at the different sports of golf and tennis and whatever, fishing ranks up there is a big sport. So that's.
So he's at Simpson, and he's on their fishing team. He took a boat with him, and they go out weekends. They practice Thursday and Friday, then they fish in tournaments Saturday and Sunday. So he's in college. And our second one, Julia, is a junior at Alhambra, and our youngest, Luke, is in 8th grade at the junior high school. So they're just down the road, which is super wonderful.
Yeah.
We can see them a lot, and we do a lot with them.
Yeah.
So,
What kind of things do you do together?
Well, we go on vacations together, and they come out. We can't build an owl thing in the barn, owl house out in the garden one year. And it sat there, it's up 30 feet or whatever. One day he came in and said, there are owls in the owl house. One was looking out at him.
Barn owls.
Barn owls.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So all summer we'd have barn parties, and the kids would come over at dusk, and we'd go out with popcorn and sit and watch the owls just swooping all over. But they've never come back after that
Well,
one
they got
year. They had babies. You
One
could hear them
year.
squawking all night. They're very noisy.
1 year.
Yeah, we had them 1 year, didn't we?
Huh.
They'll be back someday.
Yeah.
And Amy,
Has a preschool in
Has
Martinez,
preschool
Creekside
in
Montessori, down
Martinez.
by the fire station.
Yeah.
And I help her with that. Well, we fix things that are broken, and I help her with tuition and
Yeah.
things. So, yeah, keeps us in contact with a lot of younger people and younger children, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continued involvement there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else from you want to share with us? You know, you were telling us about farm
yes.
life, if you will. Kind of help us get a flavor of what that was like.
In the 40s.
Had 3 brothers.
Oh, yes, I have one other daughter. I stopped with Amy and her kids. Beth, my middle daughter, I count on so much.
Oh, the middle child syndrome.
Oh, my gosh, she's the
yeah.
middle child syndrome.
Yeah.
Beth, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has a stepdaughter in Southern California that we think an awful lot of. But Beth's a big part of our family. She's our right-hand person right now.
Yeah. Yeah, born and raised on a farm, 3 brothers, and this was a corn farm. We raised corn, fed hogs, and sold hogs. We raised other grains too, but we raised grains, fed hogs, sold hogs as a commercial. We never sold any grain as such. And early on, I was 11, 12, driving the tractor in the field. And it was it was a tough life, but it was a great way to grow up. The other thing,
What was so positive about that growing up like that? How does that feel to
Puritan
you now? Yeah.
values,
no, I really don't know.
responsibility.
Well, obviously it was a lot of work,
It was a lot
but you
of work.
feel like it was kind of fulfilling in a way.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but we were very quote modern for the time with the tractor and the latest implement and
And your stepdad went to classes. He started contour plowing. And
yeah. My parents were divorced when I was 2 and remarried when I was 2. So I was raised by my stepdad on the farm, but he was a very, very knowledgeable person. He was a tool and die maker, and he worked at the local tractor plant as the head of the tool and die making. He worked there 8 hours at night, and then slept for a few hours, then worked with us on the farm for 8 hours. And that was for many years. He worked both places. But I don't know why, I never really thought
well,
about
don't you
that.
think part of it, as time goes by, you look back with nostalgia?
Well-
but you're probably sure glad you're not back there now in the winter feeding hogs. And,
Oh, miserable.
it looks a lot better at a distance than it did in person.
Oh, yeah.
Smells better too, probably. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, you were telling us about the war years in Iowa.
Saving things, yes.
And saving things and how the culture developed to kind of be part of the war effort.
Yeah.
And then actually some of it came home to you because they were prisoners of war.
Yes,
there. So
they
tell us about that whole period.
They
and what
housed a
that was
lot of
like.
German. Our town was what, 10, 12,000?
10, yeah.
Had a beautiful old frame country club out at a golf course, and they housed German prisoners of war there during the war years. So they closed the country club, and it was kind of a drafty old place. I bet they froze because it was mostly open in the summer. But they let these young men come up to an area right near my elementary
You were
school.
German prisoners of
German
war?
prisoners of war. If they wanted to go help build houses up there, they could. And they'd fenced off a 4-block area. And for a lot of the war, a lot of them came up every day and worked, as I recall.
Yeah.
And we were never supposed to go over to that side of the playground. Of course we did, because these were all, and they were probably happy to see us too, young kids away from home. A lot of them have come back since the war to visit, and they've had reunions of them a time or two. And there's been quite a bit written about German prisoners of war in Iowa during the Second World War. There were a lot of them. So
And some of them have come back and
some
brought
of them
their
have come
families?
back, yes.
Have any
to
of them come
visit.
back to stay?
I don't know that because I'm gone.
Ah,
I don't know that.
I remember the end of the war.
Yeah.
yeah?
Excitement. Oh.
All the church bells.
Rang, yeah. And we decorated our bikes and rode around and honked our horns, and it was so exciting.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. It's making you teary thinking of it, isn't it? Yeah. We didn't lose anybody in the war, though. His stepdad went with the MPs to Paris, was in the service. My dad was too old, so he went to Baffin Island and helped build an air base for a one-year contract.
Baffin Island. That's in
Baffin
the
Island,
Arctic.
up in the north.
Yeah.
That was like a hop over to Europe, I guess. They used that as a part-way stop for airplanes, Air Force.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yep. That was a war of total involvement of everybody. Little kids, big kids, parents.
Talking about saving the wrappers from chewing gum.
Yeah, and
yeah.
talking about you had coupons for shoes.
Yeah.
And I was growing so fast, I kept using up our whole family's coupons. I was like 7, 8, 5, 6, 7. You only could get so many pairs of shoes. Of course, no bikes. At the end of the war, you would get bikes and cars, and they didn't manufacture those things. So unless you had an old one, you were out of luck. Yep.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yes.
Do you have anything else that sort of lurking in the background that you want to bring forward that we haven't talked
I
about
think his
yet?
woodworking hobbies are wonderful.
Well, I've done that for
He's a
years.
master woodworker.
Yeah. And I intend to get back to it
Yeah.
Yeah.
once I get beyond this current problem.
Well, you get all this
Situation.
manual dexterity with your surgery. Hopefully, it
That's
translates
exactly
into
right.
woodworking.
That's
right?
what I've told so many people. The same as doing, minute surgery. Same thing. I do a lot of hand cut dovetails,
Hinges,
veneering,
makes his own
planing.
hinges. Yeah.
Just to
He makes a lot of sawdust too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Put that in your compost pile, do you?
That's right.
Yeah.
We do put it in the compost pile.
I do.
Yep.
Okay.
So for a number of years, we go to Hawaii every other year with our family. We haven't been for a few years now, but we go for a week to Maui, and that was always really special.
So where do your family members come from to go to Hawaii?
It's just our
Right
kids.
here in town. Our kids and
All from here?
grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've treated them every
11
year.
of us are.
Nice. Yeah.
And then one fun thing we did last year was we went to one of the escape rooms. Have you been to any of those?
I have not.
Have you heard about them?
No.
Oh, well, we heard about them. Have you, John, heard about it? Escape rooms? Oh my gosh, it's like a puzzle. You go down and they have different ones, like one's a bank robber, one's can be this, and I can't remember what we paid, probably $75 a person. You go in the first room and there are clues
They
everywhere.
lock you all in
They
this
lock
room.
you in a room, and you have to solve this mystery. Usually, we had 2 or 3 rooms to go through, and we didn't realize at first how there were just clues everywhere. We were slow starting, and you could ask for clues, and my grandkids kept saying, "Don't ask, we'll figure this out. Don't ask." Well, we should have asked. We never quite got through everything, but it was really fun, I thought, didn't you?
Yeah,
The kids have done quite a few for birthday parties. They'll do
Yeah.
them, take a whole bunch of kids down.
Yeah.
I think after the first one, you would know to start really looking for clues fast, like pictures talk, and it's just amazing what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're quite a popular entertainment now.
Sounds like it would really stimulate your
Yes.
thinking process to
Yes.
work through that.
yes.
Yep, it does.
Okay.
I can't think of anything else.
No?
Well, how would your Mayflower ancestors think? Looking at where you are now and the things
I
you've
don't think they
accomplished,
believe it.
Yeah.
I don't think they believe it. Yes.
A lot of.
Come a long ways, baby. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been a great pleasure.
It has
to
been
sit
fun.
and talk about these things
and thank you.
learn about
Yeah.
all this stuff. So thanks again for
Yes.
doing this and making
You're welcome.
us a little bit richer community for having this little historical piece of our past brought to us. And, it was really interesting to hear about all the engagement in the community through the medical and the education, and certainly
Yeah.
those are 2 things that we all need to have
Yes.
strong in our community. And,
Well, Martinez has been really good to us. They asked at Rotary one day, "What was the smartest decision you ever made?" And I think one of our smartest was coming to Martinez and staying.
Oh, nice to say that.
Yeah, we love Martinez.
Well, Martinez, better off for both of you being here.
Yeah,
It's a
thank
good
you.
thing. So
Yeah.
thanks again.